welcome to this episode of Athletic Training Chat presented by Mueller Sports Medicine. I'm here today with Chris Ham. He is the Director of Sport Performance for Vanderbilt Baseball. Previously, he was also the athletic trainer for Vanderbilt Baseball. He also spent some time at Belmont, correct?
Correct.
Belmont and Illinois. So a little background on how I know Chris is I just finished, I guess, the rotation down with Vanderbilt Baseball. Shortened rotation with everything going on with the coronavirus. But I actually got put in touch with him a little bit before. I just forgot to email you. Chris was one of the students of one of my professors, Renee Rechelberg. So
correct.
So back in the day there. So I'll kind of turn it over to you, Chris, if you just want to kind of talk about where you went to school, kind of your upbringing into athletic training. So
my beginnings here
are
hang on, Austin, we got somebody. I'm sitting out here. Sorry about that.
No worries.
And the Amazon just dropped off a package for us. As far as my background and leading up to athletic training, I was a terrible college baseball player. I ended up playing 2 years at a JUCO in Illinois called Lincoln Trail. All right, I maxed out my time as a baseball player, and it was the best way for me to stick around the game that I wanted to help out with. So I had a lot of long conversations with my last JUCO head coach. I had 3 of those in 2 years, ironically enough, before I made the move to Illinois. And then when I got up to Illinois, I knew I wanted to be involved with the kinesiology program. When I got there, I wasn't too sure if I wanted to go the route of education, PE, and things of that nature. But once I got to talking to the advisors and things like that at Illinois, I knew my interest in the human body and athletics just led me in the right direction with kinesiology, with the emphasis on athletic training and things of that nature. So I jumped right in there. And went to JUCO and got all those prerequisite courses out of the way. It was my opportunity at Illinois to take those classes that were directly related to athletic training, the kinesiology program, the biomechanics classes, and things of that nature. So, and once I got into those and I got into that cadaver anatomy class, I knew I was onto something that I was really going to enjoy. But
right.
And after that, it was just going to be something that hopefully, and by good timing and everything like that, I was going to get to stick around with baseball, and that's kind of led me to where I am now. So after Illinois, it was a long journey of interviews and failures when it come to GA positions, internships, and things like that. And so I made some good connections while I was in grad school at Belmont, got my master's there in sports administration, and made those connections at Vanderbilt. So at the time when I was at Belmont, we served under this umbrella that the employees, sports medicine employees at Belmont, were actually hired through the medical center. And the same thing with the athletic trainers for Vanderbilt Sports Medicine, they're all hired out of the medical center too. So I got to know those guys very well. With my time over at Belmont, I got to know Tom Bossing and the head athletic training staff over at Vanderbilt. So I kind of blended those all in together. And like I said, timing's everything. The athletic trainer for baseball left in 2007. I was this wet behind the ears kind of guy, like just fresh out of grad school, had no business getting the position that I had just because Vanderbilt baseball was this program that was just starting to build itself. The likes of David Price, Mike Minor, Pedro Alvarez, they were still there. And I remember just sitting there, I'm like, I have no business being in this position. Vanderbilt was a top program in the country in 2007. Their athletic trainer just left. I had 2 years of grad school experience as an athletic trainer with baseball. I'm like, there's no shot I'm getting this. I must have did something right, and I impressed somebody on an interview somehow, some way, and that started my athletic training career at Vanderbilt. So, and we can kind of get into how that led to sports performance and stuff like that. So,
oh yeah, definitely. So how long were you the athletic trainer for baseball then? How many years under your belt?
So if my math is correct, and they've all kind of blended together now, I was the athletic trainer for 7 years for the baseball
Okay.
program at Vanderbilt. So the fall of 2007 was my first fall there, leading up to the spring of 2014. Yeah, that's right, because we had just won the national championship in 2014, and then there were some coaching changes, and my head coach Tim Corbin presented this idea to me, and we've had a lot of conversations about it in the past. And the fall of 2014 is when I moved over to this role.
Okay. So I guess that's a perfect lead into the next question is you spent 7 years as a college baseball AT, and I mean, a lot of things. Was there any one factor that drove you to the sport performance side? Was it wanting to explore something new? Was it time and traveling? Was it families? Were there any big factors that made you make that switch over to the performance from the athletic training side?
I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say that I wanted to be away from athletic training. I had always presented this holistic sports performance model to my head coach, like everything under one umbrella when it comes to sports nutrition, sports psychology, sports medicine, sports performance. If we were all working under this one umbrella and had a common language across the board, I think it would better suit our athletes, especially when it comes to our program. I know we kind of work in this little bubble at Vanderbilt when it comes to baseball. We're not with all the other athletes. They're across the street in the Guggen. We have our own baseball facility across the street. There's a small athletic training room. There's a small weight room. There's a small nutrition center over there. So we've always had this ability to build this small sports performance model for us. So that was kind of my original idea. No, I still wanted to be involved as an athletic trainer selfishly. I think if the model was different at Vanderbilt, like if the athletic trainers were actually hired through athletics, in the model, I might have been in a position where I could have overseen both. But that's not the case. And so I moved over to this sport performance role with an idea like, hey, let's bring on the athletic trainer that's willing to have conversations with me about all these small details that can help our program excel and hopefully improve as we go along here. So no, I've always enjoyed the conversations with the physicians. I miss those actually. I miss the puzzles. I miss looking at the MRIs with our team physicians. I miss those conversations with the other athletic trainers about certain issues that I actually had no idea about. I mean, one that comes to mind is like the foot and ankle were never really my area of expertise. I was a baseball athletic trainer, so wrist, elbow, shoulder, things of that nature were more along my lines. I'm going to talk to the men's basketball athletic trainer. Hey, man, come help me out with this. Am I missing something or something like that? So, no, I really didn't want to get away from athletic training. I thought, as long as we work together, this thing can grow and become something big for our program.
Definitely. And just talking with Chris, who his episode actually dropped today as you're recording that. So, no, it's definitely a nice thing, at least from what I've seen there, because going up and we can just talk to you, and it seems like it's a really easy flow of information back and forth between both the other Chris Matarazzo, the athletic trainer for baseball, and you upstairs. So I think from what I've seen in my limited time, it works really well.
It's beautiful. I mean, Chris, I had a conversation with somebody the other day, you and Chris are way smarter than I was at that particular time in my career. So having those people on board with me with that depth of a knowledge and trying to apply this holistic performance model to our athletes and the general athletic population that we deal with, a guy that's that gifted, that talented to do the baseball things that he does on the field, and try to get him to do those things better ultimately. I can't do that by myself. And when I was a young athletic trainer, I thought it was all on me. I really did. And that's why I wanted this model more. I wanted to be able to have a conversation with the strength coach that was willing to make an adjustment if we saw something with a particular athlete, or the conversations with the position coaches, like what are you seeing? How are they moving with the pitchers and things of that nature? So having everybody on a common language, pitching coach, hitting coach, athletic trainer, our nutritionist, and the athletic training staff has made this thing really, really nice.
Mm-hmm. No, for sure. So I guess as you made, more of the transition to the sport performance side, were there any challenges with that? It's kind of separating what you did as the athletic trainer to sport performance. I know you said that you want to still be involved in both and like both of those, but were there any challenges that you ran into right off the bat?
No doubt. There is a science to sports performance, and there is an art to coaching.
Mm-hmm.
And I definitely, when I first started this, had no idea how much of the art side applied to this. And I'm still at a point. I'm still very, very young in this sports performance career. The people that I talk to have just as many years combined with athletic training and strength and conditioning that I have. They've done sports performance their whole life. So there's an art and a science to this. And most of these athletes that we deal with, I'm drawing a blank on it right now, but they really don't care how much you know. They want to know how much you care to start out with. And once we figure that out, and once we can get on the same page about goals, expectations, how to manage personalities, how to manage a team setting, things like that, that was a complete shock to me. I was so used to the individualized setting as an athletic trainer. Come into the athletic training room, I'll have 2 to 3 guys going at a time. I'll have a student athletic trainer with me. All right, help me out with these modalities. Let's execute this plan. I got 3 to 4 guys going at once. Okay. Now let's add 35 guys to that. Let's add 40 to that. Let's add your position coaches watching you as you do this. There's an art to it. And I still have a long, long ways to go when it comes to that. So that was probably the first big shock when I moved over to this thing. The anatomy, the physiology, the science behind what I was trying to apply was all given to me through my athletic training experience, through the mentors that I had in undergrad and grad school and things like that. So taking those principles and applying those to the sports performance model, yeah, that gave me a great foundation to do it. But managing that athlete that really wasn't having it that day, or the coach had just gotten on them earlier because they had a bad performance like a couple days ago, managing personalities, that was one of the biggest shocks to me.
Oh, definitely. And I kind of want to get your thought on this with athletic training making the transition to a master's degree, so requiring that 4-year undergrad. I think a lot of people are going to be kind of in almost like the inverse position of yourself. Like myself, I had a strength and conditioning degree. I did a little with that, had about a year of full-time experience before I got into athletic training. I found that even that experience helped me in make that transition to athletic training. I learned a lot, especially as you talked about kind of the art and science of coaching. And that's something that I know that I try to use daily. So I guess, do you see that as being a big benefit to the transition? Or I guess, what are your thoughts on the general transition to a master's degree for athletic training? Do you think it's going to kind of help in that aspect, or?
I would hope so. I would hope so. And here's the first thing that comes to my mind. The more time and the more exposures that you have to different environments, hopefully encourage a better situation than what I started, especially going to grad school. I know I was put in a position to succeed coming out of undergrad, my mentors were very good, and those are guys that I still talk to this day.
Mm-hmm.
But getting myself put in that position for 2 more years through the master's program and those experiences that I had as an athletic trainer, I know it was a little bit different than what the design of the program is now. I was thrust into the position as the baseball athletic trainer for Belmont in grad school.
Mm-hmm.
Here, you handle it. It's yours. Figure out the communication aspects and things of that nature. So hopefully these the younger athletic trainers coming out of undergrad with age, with experience and exposures through the master's program will put them in a better situation than I was put in coming out of undergrad, throwing right into that mix. That's the first thing that comes to my mind.
Right. All right. So I guess now being on the performance side, and do you have any advice for athletic trainers? Because you talk a lot about this holistic sport performance model, and clearly it's something that works really well at Vanderbilt. Do you have any advice for athletic trainers, any practical advice for them to, I guess, improve that communication and work towards that model a little bit? Because I know that where I've been, both at Milwaukee, my former preceptor with baseball, he has a great relationship with the strength coach, and that they meet and they talk about a lot of the same things that we do at Vanderbilt. But I know I've also been a couple places where that's not necessarily the case as well. So any advice for athletic trainers to kind of help bridge that gap? Kind of
What's that? No. It's fine. I'm just trying to figure out how to best suit this. Figure out a common language. Mm-hmm. All right. I think then that's one thing that I wanted to create with this transition that I had. I was able to talk to the athletic trainer with the same language that I would want him to talk to with me. Mm-hmm. I think what I witnessed a lot and what made me really want this thing to succeed and this model to grow is being able to have a professional conversation about something that's going on. Not walking into a room and being like, no, Johnny can't go today. He's out. Okay, well, as an athletic trainer, I always had the mentality that I'm here to be a benefit or be an asset to our student athletes. Yes, Johnny might have sprained his ankle. What can he do today? What are our goals? What are long-term goals? Is it 2 weeks away from the national championship game? Is it the first week of the season? What's going to be a benefit for him? Is it going to be a benefit for him to say, hey, I need you to go work with the athletic trainer first. Let's take care of your treatment. Let's take care of the rehab portion of this. Come upstairs while we're in the middle of our weight room session. We'll take care of your upper body. I'll do things like that, as opposed to, I know there were times when I did it as a grad assistant. I'm like, nope, he can't do anything today. He's out. And the strength coach just looks at me going, no, that just puts a strain on a relationship, in my opinion. So trying to find ways you can work together. Yes, I know if Chris walks into if Chris walks into the weight room and he tells me that an athlete's been having low back problems and things like that, we're going to go through those contraindications. Listen, extension bothers him, rotations bothering him. All right, we can still do this, this, and this. All right, I pull up my plan. We figure this out. All right, Chris, he can do this, this in the weight room. All right, we're good. We still keep the athlete in the team environment. I make sure I don't put him in a bad position. And we're still looking at the goals later along the lines, short-term and long-term, where we want these particular guys to deal with. The gentleman that I worked with, the strength and conditioning coach that I worked with, a couple guys prior to me moving into this position, was very good at what he did. But he was very, very set in his ways. Like there was not much adjusting to his programs. And I get it. I mean, they worked. They did. I mean, but I thought there was a lot of gray area that, hey, I think I can help you out in order to get back to where you want these guys to be. And then there was another strength coach that worked in, and he's actually still on staff, that I was very involved in the programming and stuff like that. So the progressions of return to play and things like that, I helped him out with as an athletic trainer when he was in that position. So I think just having a professional conversation and a professional approach. I think if you walk into a room, especially early on in experience, like me as a fresh graduate assistant out of undergrad, and you have these fine lines where these guys aren't going to do this, these guys aren't going to do that, I think you put yourself in a bad situation, like moving forward. They're going to be very hesitant to work with you, very hesitant to create positive relationships going forward.
Gotcha. All right. I think now we can start to move into our AT5 questions. So we have 5 questions we ask every guest here. So
all right.
First up, we talked about it a little bit, but where do you see athletic training as a profession going in the next 5 to 10 years? A lot of things are changing right now, so I guess kind of want to get your thoughts on that.
Where do I see it in 5 years? I see athletic trainers actually starting to sell themselves more of an asset to the healthcare community as a whole. There are some athletic trainers that are very, very, very good at what they do, all the way from the research side all the way to the practical side. So if you take the progressions of, or the continuum of this, and looking at how anybody could help the healthcare community, the healthcare environment, I think it's something that hasn't been tapped into yet. Yeah, we think of your initial response to as an athletic trainer is the gentleman running out on the football field taking care of the guy that's down. But so much of that is done behind the scenes. Like, these are the people that do the initial assessments, follow-up appointments, conversations with the doctors, the plans, the initial visits, the modalities, and things like that. I think these are people that have a big toolbox that could be tapped into on all levels of healthcare, physicians' assistants, things of that nature. I think it's something that's going to continue to grow. Step away from that, and you look at it from a university and athletics standpoint, I think you're going to see a lot more of them involved in the things that we're trying to do here at Vanderbilt, and that being applied across the board. You see it a lot in rugby. You see it a lot in soccer, those models of everybody being on the same page and just being a piece of the puzzle. Athletic trainers, for the most part, are very, very smart people and can be used in a lot of aspects when it comes to healthcare.
Right. No, for sure. All right. So you just graduated. You go back in time, you just graduated. What piece of advice would you give yourself as a young athletic trainer?
What piece of advice would I give myself as a young athletic trainer? I'd tell myself to have deeper conversations with the patient. I was so enamored with numbers, relative norms within normal limits and things like that. Like, it has to fit in this bubble. They have to have this much range of motion. And not stepping back and understand the individuality of the athlete, where he came from, what's he dealing with, like the outside stresses that they're trying to handle, personal, social, everything of that nature. I really didn't do that when I was younger. It was like, your ankle hurts, I'm treating this. Let's get it done. Let's get you back on the field that way. Instead of stepping back and go, all right, man, like, what else is going on? How can we handle this? What can I do to help you get there just a little bit faster? And trying to think of the big picture as opposed to, yep, your ankle's big. Let's get the swelling down. Let's get moving along.
Yeah. No, for sure. All right. You talked a little bit about it when you were talking about mentors, but what have been some of the most, if you had to pick some of the most influential resources throughout your career, whether it be some of those mentors, whether it be a book or a course, or what do you got?
I'd go back to my first site coordinator at University of Illinois, a guy named Randy Ballard. He's brilliant. he actually does – he oversees the performance model at the University of Illinois. So he does it like big picture. He was in charge of women's volleyball and track at the University of Illinois when I was there. So he came from some time at Texas and some time at Kansas State, having worked football, having worked track at Texas. So he got to know these performance coaches at Texas and ended up helping out some Olympic athletes along the way. So looking at his model of performance healthcare, the overall well-being of the athletes, I got to see that really early. He's somebody that I still talk to this day. And I'll go back to my Illinois. One of my first classes there is kinesiology, like 101. The book in that class is something I still have in my office. And if I have a strength and conditioning intern, that's a go-to for us. That's something we review because it covers the basics, it covers the science, it covers the physiology of it. Not so much on the cellular level that they tend to regress to, like all the way back as the athletic training student, but that's one of those. And then when I got more into baseball specific, as an athletic trainer, I was drawn to strength coaches that appreciated athletic training. And early on, it was Eric Cressy. It was Mike Reinold was actually the Red Sox athletic trainer. He does Champion Sports Performance up in Boston. And Eric Cressy actually has a facility down in Florida and up in Mass. So he was a contact that I had just because I knew what he was trying to apply when it comes to the well-being of our athletes. So early on, those two guys helped me out with some hands-on stuff and things like that. But there's so many out there. There's so many that you have to vet out now, just with social media and things like that. I've come to find out, like, there's some really, really good coaches out there that really aren't active on social media. They're behind the scenes, like they know what they're doing. They know how to apply it. They understand the science of it and things of that nature. So just when you go online, make sure you do your research on those particular guys that you're looking up to right there.
Right. All right. So this is always a fun one. If you could change or eliminate one thing, whether it be a modality, common practice, mindset, whatever, in the field of athletic training, what would it be?
If I had to change one thing, especially early on, I go back to the undergrad and think about some of the younger athletic trainers hopefully listening to this, but I would really, really consider – I would tell my younger self this. I would really consider using passive modalities to prepare an athlete to play. I think when we came out as athletic training students, we saw a lot of ice and stem, the ultrasound machine, like all these passive modalities. Then we take them up and we watch them go out on the football field and actually try to do what they were doing. And it was like a hard slap in the face my first year trying to apply all these passive modalities to 10 to 15 guys that would come in the training room by myself. I had to get creative here. All right, the body's made to move. All right, and I got to prepare this thing to do athletic things. I started to think of ways to get these guys to move better without relying on those passive modalities. So my second year as an athletic trainer, it took a lot, and it took a lot of deep conversations, but I eliminated the STEM unit. And for the longest time, I would not use the ultrasound machine. And there were a lot of athletes that didn't appreciate my approach to that. And I'll tell you this story. And he kind of laughed. I had to tell him after the fact. I had this freshman pitcher come in, and this will lead to probably an ethics conversation if we get to it. But he swore up and down. Like, I do an ultrasound on my elbow every time before I pitch. It works wonders. I feel great. I'm on this. I got to do this. So we had conversations, and I kind of put it off. And finally I got to the point all right, man, we'll do this. I'll take care of you. I'll do an ultrasound. So I set it up. I put a little Flexol down first. I put the gel for the ultrasound head over to Flexol, and I put a towel over the ultrasound machine. Never turn the ultrasound machine on. Put a timer on my phone, 5 minutes. We just sat there, had a conversation. We did this. I took care. I made sure I did the proper surface area and things like that, something he was accustomed to. Like I said, never turned it on. Got done, wiped off the gel, wiped off the Flexol. And I go, how you feel, man? Moves his elbow around. Great. That was awesome. I appreciate you doing that. And about 3 or 4 years later, I actually told him that I never turned the ultrasound machine on when he used it. So I know that brings up an ethics conversation, but it just tells you that there are different ways to do this. There are different ways to apply it. Like, as a strength coach, I'm not married to one exercise. There's so many different ways you can do a squat. There's so many different modalities that you can use on the recovery side of things. I didn't exactly throw away the stim unit. We just did that. We just did that on the recovery side of things. I didn't do that on the front end of our training session in order to get them ready. So that was one of the things. Like, I just went straight to that. As an athletic trainer, I go, I have to do things for these individuals. I have to apply these modalities. When in turns, I should have stepped back, should have did a little more deeper, more quality evaluations when it comes to movement, things of that nature, and looked at the holistic athlete and kind of moved forward.
Right.
But yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. I mean, with that ultrasound story, I mean, it's something that Chris and I have talked about when it comes to whether we use cups or whether we use ISDM. I mean, a placebo result is still a positive result. So
absolutely, there that applies. And I'm curious, under the circumstances that we're in right now, we're getting athletes that aren't in a position to get these modalities right now. They're not in a position to get the manual therapy that they normally do, get the massages after every training session, get the ultrasound, get the cupping, get the manual therapy, that hands-on, the passive stretching that they're accustomed to getting in this weird situation that we're in now. I'm hoping that it will get these athletes to understand how much they themselves can use different movement patterns, use different active ways to prepare themselves to play. Like, yeah, they're still going to have their soft tissue equipment. They're still going to have this, but not everybody's going to have the Mark Pro units. Not everybody's going to have somebody that can apply the cups, can apply the grasping techniques or anything like that. So hopefully we haven't got to the point that we've built up these athletes to be so reliant on these extra therapies as opposed to quality movement in order to get them ready to go.
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely. All right, final question for you. This especially it's appropriate being National Athletic Training Month when we're filming this at the very end of it, but what does being an athletic trainer mean to you? Sum it all up.
What does an athletic trainer mean to me? Being an asset to and our environment, to the health and well-being of our population. And if that means telling them that you need to go talk to somebody else, that was the biggest part for me. There were some mental health issues that I had to deal with, and stepping away that, listen, I know I can help you, but I'm not the person to help you, but I can. I know the people to have the conversations with. I have the resources to help you outside of here. Just understanding that you are an asset to what these people are trying to do. And most of them appreciate it. I think that gets kind of brushed under the rug a little bit under the athletics model, and everybody gets in a hurry, like, how quick can we get back on the field? How quick can I get back from this? I'm missing this and stuff like that. But I think for the most part, they understand that we're here to help. And I think deep down, when I wanted to move into athletic training, that was probably the biggest thing. I like helping people, and that's the bottom line. That's what we do, helping people and communicating with them on how to help them. Like I said, whether I can do it or somebody else, that's probably what an athletic trainer is to me. Understanding your tools and how you can help somebody, and knowing in the big picture you can get these guys the right tools to help them get better sooner.
Right on. No, that's awesome. All right. That was the end of our questions for you. So have anything else that you want to share or anything else you want to add to anything we've talked about so far?
I hope not. I hope we didn't shortchange you under the circumstances as a student here at Vanderbilt.
No, it was a great experience. A short one, but no, definitely enjoyed it. It was completely new from anything I've experienced and loved every second of it.
Well, good deal. Glad I could help you out along the way.
Awesome. So I guess last thing here for you, if people want to reach out, find you, is there a way to best get in contact with you, whether it be a social media, email? Anything?
All right, we can do email. Probably the best way is chris.ham@vanderbilt.edu. And I'll just put this out there. It's 1M, Ham.
Gotcha. And we'll throw a link for that.
And then my social media outlets, Twitter, and that's at CEHAM 212.
Awesome. And we'll throw up a link for that in the episode sheet here. But thank you, Chris. Appreciate your time. It's good to talk to you again.
You too, man. I miss having you around, bud.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Thank you.